Good morning, everyone. This is Diane Murray at Southern Art Gallery. Today we're going to do a fun little painting for Christmas that I'm going to teach in one of my classes. This is a painting I did in oil, and I just love it. So today we're going to paint the same painting in watercolor. Whenever I start a painting, I always do a value study. Either I do it in black and white, a black and white photograph, or I draw it and shade it in and do at least 3 values so that I can maintain my value structure and to make my painting more realistic. So the colors, I'll just move this. Here's the drawing. There's my drawing. I don't know if you can see it very well because it is light, but that's our drawing. These are the colors we'll be using today. It's a very limited palette. We're using Pyrrole Red. Bring this a little closer. Payne's Gray, Ultramarine Blue, and Gamboge. That's a Winsor Newton Gamboge. You can use any brand's Gamboge as long as it's a warm yellow. And that's how we're going to make our greens. And that's going to be the limited palette for us. And I have gone ahead and masked out all the places where the snow hits the truck. And I've used PBO so you can see it really well. So I'm taking my Payne's Gray and I'm going to drop in my darkest darks. And that will set my value scale for me. So this is in shadow. This is going to be quite dark. And this is just the first layer. So a lot of times I will turn my board to make my job easier. And I know this tire is going to be black as well, but I'm going to go ahead and drop this in first because this is the shadow behind the tire. And this is just straight Payne's Gray. I use a lot of different Payne's Grays, Senneliers, Da Vinci. Daniel Smith has a Payne's Gray that's on the blue side that's really lovely. So you don't have to be real particular about Payne's Gray. Some are blacker. Winsor Newton's Payne's Gray is very blue. But it's a lovely color though. Okay, so that is part of the tire there. So, okay, this is also dark. This is kind of like a road map here. For me, it just shows me where the darks are going to go. And this is a whimsical painting. We're not taking this this is not a serious watercolor painting. It's just something fun to do for a change. If you are finding yourself burned out or not wanting to paint for some reason, or you can't get excited about painting, this is a fun way to kind of get your enthusiasm back. Let me concentrate on what's happening here because that is behind that fender. And then it angles back toward that fender there. So it's kind of like this. Okay. And if it's too thick, just blot it. That's just going to be the first layer there. Okay, I see those darks. And I'm looking at the actual painting that I did of this truck. I actually took this photograph in Hobby Lobby of a toy truck, and I will put that actual photograph in the video so that you can see it. It was just a really fun thought that I had. a way to paint something a little different. And I'm going to run this darker here. I'm going to turn that upside down so I can get a sharp edge on that. And I'll just build these darks. Be sure your masking fluid is dry before you do this. Luckily, PBO dries very quickly, so that's not a problem. Let's get this sharp in here. The brushes I'm using today are Princeton. I have a lot of brushes and I use a lot of different brushes. I've been finding that I really like these pointed rounds. These are very pointed. Let's see what happens with that. Does that go all the way around? Yes, it does. So I'm just building the dark around the wheel, and then we'll put the wheel in, of course. But this is a Princeton Long Round Velvet Touch. You can even get these at Hobby Lobby. They're very inexpensive. And I've just been trying them to see if I like them. So now I'm going to come on to this tire right here and kind of blend all this together because I want that to be a soft blend there. Okay, and this will be darker still. This little dark area. Okay, so those are the darkest darks that I see in the painting. So now we've established those. Then we can just lighten our Payne's Gray and do our midtones. The wonderful thing about watercolor is your value, you can easily change your values just by the amount of water that you use. I'm going to go ahead and drop in this band right here. And it stops right there. And it picks up again over here. I don't know why I like these painting these little trucks, but I really do. They're just so much fun to paint, especially at Christmas time. If you want to give gifts, if you want a special gift for someone, giving a little painting like this, people will absolutely love it. Okay, so we're going to run this on down here. And that's just the shadow in the door. And this one starts here. And you don't want this too perfect. This is in no way a realistic painting, so you really don't have to worry about everything being perfect here. It's just fun. Fun thing to do for the holidays. Okay, and in between the top of the door, we're just outlining the door to the truck. And I'll just keep showing you the photographs so that you can see kind of what we're doing, what I'm doing here. I'm actually painting from the painting, so I'm not paying too much attention to this, to the actual value study here just right now. So I'm going to go ahead and run a very light Payne's Gray over this inner hubcap, I guess. It's the hubcap, I suppose, of the wheel. We don't get snow where I live. Very rarely do we ever get snow, so it's always kind of fun to paint snow. I'm no expert on painting snow, I'll just tell you right now. So we don't get a lot of snow. Okay, so blot my brush, pick up that, do the other hubcap. Back here. Pick up any excess water. Okay. I think we'll do that's a running board, I think. Right in here. Don't be afraid to turn your paper so that you can see what you're doing. I've seen my students try to paint all kind of strange contortions. It's much easier to move your painting than it is to move you. So we're just putting in the bumper now. This is just a, like you do in oil, we're doing an underpainting actually to establish the where the colors go. It's a road map. And of course we'll build on these. Darker as we go. You want to have a fairly sharp brush to do this because it is a man-made object, and anytime we're painting a man-made object, it has sharp edges. So, but again, it's a whimsical painting, so if it's not perfect, it's not gonna matter tremendously. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and drop the a dark value in the windshield, just because that's what windshields or windows kind of have in there. Just a darkness to them. And then we'll lay some more darks in there as we go along. Just to kind of establish and that is darker at the base, so we can let that be darker right there. That'll be fine. Okay, and now we'll do, and I paint, you see I attach my paper. This, by the way, is the actual paper that we'll be using in class. This is Fabriano's Studio, which is their student grade paper, which I find just fine for my students, especially if you don't want to spend a lot on paper. This paper is actually quite nice for practice pieces. I don't use it for my studio work, but it's good for doing little studies. And this is kind of has dark areas in it, so we'll just loosely put that in like that. All right. And now, even though this area, let me just show you this. The dark red, even though there's a dark red where the shadows of the red are, we're going to use the Payne's Gray. So we'll go ahead and lay that in just to remind us that there is a darker value in there. And of course that's underneath the shadow here of the little, whatever you call that thing under there. And it gets a little bit bigger back there. But let's make that straight. Let's make that a straight mark. Okay. All right. There's also a shadow on the fenders, behind the fender, particularly right here. And over here as well. But we're going to soften those, so just dampen your brush and just soften that. And soften this, so we don't have a hard edge there. I'm pretty sure there should be a shadow under here as well. This is a very crisp shadow, so I'm going to not soften that, but I am going to soften this right here. Okay. Let's go ahead and put in the tires. Let's put in this one back here underneath the fender. You have to have a pretty steady hand for this. And of course, this is going to look different in watercolor than it looked in oil, but that's the fun of painting in both mediums. I love to paint some things in oil, and I love to paint some things in watercolor. Just depends. Okay, and that tire, okay, I'm happy with that. All right, let's do this tire. And because this tire has a light place on the top of the tire, I'm going to put a little water right up here so that that gives kind of the illusion of that lighter place on the tire. And then we'll darken as we go down here. Whenever you're painting things like this, always be sure that you can see the edge of your brush, because that way you know exactly where you're putting your paint. And you know, if you do mess up, you can always make your hubcap smaller. And because they're rubber, they're not going to be totally smooth. So it's okay to have some texture in this situation. And if you lose the highlight that you wanted to keep, just blot it out. And of course, we're going to make this part of the tire darker here on the rim, where it's kind of underneath. And toward the front. Just want some dimension in the tire. So we don't want it to be totally the same value the whole way. See, I kind of like that idea that it's lighter on the edge there. And we'll go back over this more than once to make sure that the tire is round. And you can tweak it with your brush too. We just want this to kind of look loose. And I'm thinking that this is too big, this hubcap, so let's make it a little smaller. Yeah, that's better. And if you want to check whether something's round or not, just get a little lid or something and put it on there and trace around it or paint around it. But I'm not being very particular with this, simply because it's not supposed to be perfect. I guess those are lug bolts. I don't know. They're kind of just in here.